Welcome to Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. My name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Our objective is to enthuse, inspire, energize, and empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes here in BW and beyond. We do so by inviting these entrepreneurs into our makeshift studio. Sometimes we call them to the restaurant, sometimes we go to our studio, and we ask them to share their experiential knowledge, their experiences and their expertise. And we ask them as many questions as we can, aimed at empowering you also as a viewer. Hello, dear viewer and listener. I'm so happy to come to you once again with another episode of Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. This is your host, Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe, and today we're going to talk about public relations, all things public relations, and we have a wonderful guest, and my guest is
Bontle Daniel.
Okay, just do me the favor of just sharing your full background in terms of your condensed CV. Yeah.
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me, and good morning or evening, afternoon to your listeners. It's a pleasure being here and having to talk about PR. This is my passion. It's something that I love, that I enjoy, and that I do every day. My career in PR began in 2014 when I started my first year in UB. That's when I started writing. I started writing for Media Online. From there, I moved to the Dialogue Group. Every year since then, I've been working in PR, and I'm currently pursuing my master's in media and communication, and I'm writing a research on PR. That just to give you a background of my passion for PR and where it stems from and where it's going.
And in terms of academics or vocational training,
I'm doing my master's right now in UB. I'm also a member of Prisa. Prisa is an association for public relations professionals. So I'm in the committee in the Botswana chapter, Prisa Botswana chapter. And what we do is we look after the interests of members professionally. So PR professionals, marketing professionals. We devise.
But what was your
training.
first degree on?
My first degree was on media. It was media, so I did BA in media studies, measuring in PR and in English.
Oh, okay. So you started it at school.
Started at school.
Yeah.
Yes.
What drew you to public relations?
What do I?
What drew you to it as a career? What was the initial spark?
I think the spark came from just the ability to sort of manage an organization, but doing it from a communications perspective. I think that's what drew me. It's not like any other type of management role, but it's more on communications and managing relationships, managing clients' perceptions, managing your products, managing your services, all using communication. And to me, communication is a very important tool, and to get to use it in my line of work, I think that's just what gets me excited.
So, Prisa, what is Prisa, Botswana?
So Prisa, it's Public Relations Association for Southern Africa, but there's a Prisa Botswana chapter which is housed here in Botswana. We're in the process of trying to get it registered as a Botswana and local society. But Prisa, basically, members subscribe to Prisa to become members, so it's a membership kind of thing. And we know, like in every industry, when you have a professional body attached to your name or attached to your profession or attached to your CV, it sort of gives you leverage over other candidates. So that's what it aims to do, to give members leverage over others.
Everybody thinks they understand what public relations is, but I suspect we don't really know what it is. Is there a working definition?
I think before that, the practice of PR in Botswana, I think it's very misunderstood. I'm actually writing a paper on that. It's called The Practice of PR in Botswana. And I think a lot of people don't quite understand what PR does. It's often disregarded as marketing, as advertising, like exactly where does it fit? But those are just tactics of PR in my understanding, in my view. But according to me, PR is management through communication.
Management through communication.
Yes, management of relationships, management of perceptions. It's basically managing your stakeholder relationships using communication. So your internal stakeholders, your external stakeholders, you manage those relationships using communication.
How did it develop to become a profession on its own or a field on its own?
I think here, just locally and maybe elsewhere globally, PR is not really regarded as an industry or a career or something that can have its own thing. But I think it has evolved over the last maybe 20, 50 years. It has evolved to become, a standing body on its own. And a lot of people used to think of PR as spin doctoring, or as just someone who represents an organization, someone who speaks on behalf of an organization, but it's more than that.
There's an element of that.
Yeah, it is an element of that, but it goes beyond that. It goes beyond just standing in front of the podium and just talking about your products or talking about your services. It's about relationships. And I think that's the core of PR. The core of PR is relationship building, relationship maintenance, and just ensuring that you and your stakeholders have a mutually beneficial relationship. Because if you have established that, then it's easy for you to push your products, it's easy for you to push your services as an organization and as a brand.
Is there a relationship between brand building and PR? And if so, what is it?
Brand building and PR. Like I was saying earlier, I think everything else that's related to PR is just tactics that we use. When you're building a brand, you're in essence doing PR work. You get what I mean? Like if you build a brand, you're trying to get people to perceive your brand in a favorable way, right? And that's PR in its own. It's about building a brand, and it's about building a brand that has a good brand perception. So that's PR. Essentially, that's what it does.
You call yourself a brand story enthusiast. Well, how did you come to label yourself like that?
I love stories. First of all, I think let's just start there. I love a good story, and I love a company or an organization or a brand that tells a good story, a good, compelling story. I think that's what draws in your publics, it's what draws in your customers. I think if you take Coca-Cola, for example, Coca-Cola has a good story. You might not know what it is, but if you just see an ad of Coke, you just feel good about it. There's this campaign I remember quite well. It was Share Coke campaign. So this campaign had, maybe you could find the name Mogobe on a can of Coke. That's something that made you feel good and want to be associated with that type of brand. And if you see a Coke next to a Pepsi, you're not going to go for the Pepsi, you're going to go for the Coke because of how it makes you feel. And I think that's a good story that they're telling.
Because they link it to happiness.
Yes, there's a link to happiness. I think if there's one thing,
which is not necessarily the case.
Right.
But they've done a good job of convincing the world.
Exactly, and that is brand perception, that is brand equity, getting people to feel a certain way or to think a certain way about your brand. And that's what just PR is all about.
So is there a particular story that you can tell us about yourself when you started, in terms of after you finished at school?
I think my story started way before that. I think going into first year, I did not understand what PR was. I just, registered for media and I just thought, well, I'm going to do either advertising or video production, broadcasting. PR was never in the books until I learned about PR and until I learned about what it does and how it helps companies to become what they are. And that's what drew me to it. And from that day on, I promise you, everything that I've done up until this day has always been PR. And one thing that really helped me in my professional career is, I was telling my friend the other day that all the job offers that I've received since 2014 have been because of the way that I brand myself on LinkedIn. I've got people come to me saying, I saw your profile on LinkedIn. This is what I want us to talk about. Every job, like literally every job and every connection, every professional connection that I have was because of how I was branding myself on LinkedIn. And that is my story.
And what is so unique there? How did you paint yourself? Is there anything that you'd say is catchy about the way you branded yourself, the way you've presented yourself on LinkedIn?
I think if you know what you want and if you know how to get it, it kind of makes things very easy for you to attain what you want to have. Branding myself on LinkedIn wasn't really something that I really thought hard about. until now. Now I'm realizing that I should have probably thought more about it.
Yeah.
But it's something that just came naturally to me because PR is what I love and it's what I want to do for the rest of my life. It's a passion, and people see that. People feel my passion. People see it, and I demonstrate it very well on my LinkedIn, and that's what people are drawn to. Yeah, people like a good story. Like I was saying, people love to be told stories.
Give me an example of a story you shared on LinkedIn that sort of garnered a lot of attention.
Okay. So on my LinkedIn and also on my Facebook page, I share a lot of content on PR. So I would read maybe an article on, integrated marketing communications, understand it, and then I'll go to my platform and just make a video and just share what I've learned, share my learnings. This is what I've learned, and this is how IMC can help you, can help your business, can help you drive sales. So that's what I do.
Okay. I want to know one that you did, which got the biggest response, or which brings the biggest smile to your face, as it were. What were you sharing on, and what was it? Can you share some of that?
From the top of my head, I think the one that I started with, maybe that's the one that got a lot of people talking. So there's this thing. I like to analyze adverts, right?
Analyze adverts.
Analyze adverts. So there was this company, it's an internet provider. So maybe before I start, there's this thing called innuendo in marketing and in advertising. It's where innuendo, yeah. It's where
we also have that in law.
In law, yeah. So people often misuse sexual innuendos, like they put it where it's not really, doesn't really fit, And so I took this advert and I placed it on my Facebook page and I just analyzed it.
What was it about, the advert?
So the advert was by this internet provider. So they have taken their services to Maum. So it was the first time they were in Maum, right? And they posted this thing that increases manhood. What is it called?
This is what?
Manhood.
Oh, some medicine or something.
So
some plant.
Some plant. So they attached that plant to the advert and said, like a size. You know what? I think they were trying to, create excitement and get people to get people's buy-in.
They were sexualizing the
ad, but it is the wrong way to do it. Sexual innuendos are good for marketing and for advertising, but there's a way that you do it. You have to be subtle about it. You don't just put it there on your face like it's just off-putting. Yeah. And I think that
so you wrote about that.
I wrote about it.
And how did they respond? Or how did the public respond?
The public, of course, people like to have a good laugh. People like things that are funny. So there were some who were just like, oh, that's just a joke. And there were some who were like, no, actually see what you mean.
Yeah. Can you give an example, not an example, but illustrate to us why you believe companies need PR officers?
I think one illustration I can give you right now, it's from a brand, and this is a popular musician. I don't know if I can call them by name. Am I allowed?
Let's just not mention names.
Names, right? So there's this popular musician. He does some very good work in terms of charity and stuff, but he often can't draw a line between professional and personal. So he uses his Facebook, that's his platform, right? And in his Facebook, he shares a lot of...
I know who you're talking about.
A lot of good things, but a lot of bad things at the same time. And you can't put those things together in one place because you have to... There's a brand name attached to your name, to your actual name. As Mogobe, you have something attached to you. When I think Mogobe, there's something that comes to my mind, right? And this person, they can't draw the distinction between personal and professional. And I think that's why they need someone who can be in charge, strategically draft their media presence and just have them, say the right things at the right time.
Is the job of PR office to filter information?
I think that's spin doctoring. I don't think that's
it's what?
Spin doctoring. But that's not what PR does. It doesn't filter. We tell, if a company is in a crisis, for instance, we're not going to say there was a shooting, like blatantly like that. There's a way to tell, to report on that matter, but using language that is soft and that is sensitive and that is, you know what I mean? You don't just speak but you speak with a purpose, you speak with strategy, and that's what PR does. We don't spin doctor stories and information. No, we tell it in a strategic way.
Okay, let's talk specifically about your company. When did you form it, and what does the name mean?
So Brandbuzz started in 2020.
Brandbuzz.
Brandbuzz. So basically, I create a buzz around your brand.
Started in
2020. Started in 2020, but I have been operational since before then, but I just didn't have a company name attached to it.
In other words, you're a sole proprietor.
Yeah, and I think I like the word buzz. It's something that says, well, we are creating a buzz, we're creating excitement, we're creating activity around your name. So brand buzz, that's what it means. Yeah.
And I guess what I want you to do is to tell us about those early baby steps.
Okay, so when I started in PR, I was, I think, at an agency, and this was the Dialogue Group, if I'm allowed to say. I think that's where my love for PR really grew. Just being exposed to daily PR work, to press release writing, to speech writing, to events, to strategically communicating, to strategies, to comp plans. I think that's what really drew my interest, and it grew my interest in that space. And there's this one particular thing that I did for when I was at Dialogue. So I was writing for a client, a big bank, they had a newsletter. I can't say the name, of course. They had a newsletter, so I was writing for this newsletter, and just seeing my work published in an actual newsletter, that really just meant everything to me, and it just keeps me going. It just keeps driving me, and
gave you a sense of accomplishment.
Yes. Like this thing, I own it. It's mine. I did it. I mean, you can't say you did it because there's the company, but still, it's just something that, you feel personal to. It feels personal to you. It feels like it's your baby. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I do know what you mean. And then that led to you saying, it's time to...
And then I felt like, what? I've done so much. I've done a lot, and I do good work in my view. So why not... why not make money out of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how I started consulting.
Okay. Can you share some of your success stories, as it were?
I don't know if you watch, I can't quite remember what the name is, but I think it's something sports in the UK. Something
sports?
Like a news channel.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what that is. So I was in an interview with this lady called Lindia Greenway. She used to be a great sportsman in her day. So the company that I was working for, we called her in. We were doing the Cricket Association. We were sponsoring the Cricket Association. So we brought her in for mentorship purposes. So I did an interview with Lydia Greenway, and that to me, I didn't know about her before the interview. I didn't know who she was and why is she so big until after the interview. That's when I was like, I did an interview with Lydia Greenway. That's just a huge accomplishment to me. Yeah.
Okay, that's just number one. Anything else?
I think one thing that I did was for this company in 2021, just after COVID hit really hard. This company was starting, and I helped them with their PR strategy, and now they're a big company in the tech space. And the strategy they're still running with it even without my help. So I think that it was a good strategy.
I'm sure you do look at companies doing their PR strategy, and you think, hey, these guys are really messing it up. They're bombing it. Without mentioning any names, can you give examples of where you think that this is a disaster? I could do it a lot better. I'm just taking it to companies, actual businesses, as opposed to just entertainers.
Maybe let's start with those that are doing good.
Yeah, okay, you can start with the good.
Okay, with the good, there's this bank that are doing good stuff, even with the negative backlash on social media, they still continue to do good stuff, and people still continue to go back to them as a service provider. And this company has been in the news for overcharging, over this, over that, just negative news around it. But people go back to them. Why? Because brand loyalty, and they know that they can't get a particular service from any other bank except for that one, and that's what keeps drawing them
I think
back.
the picture of that bank could be in the background.
Exactly, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think they're doing great work in terms of their PR strategy. They have people coming back even if they're still complaining. But if there's a company that I don't think is doing well, if I can't mention names, there's another bank. There's another bank. I feel like they have a good market. They have a good market positioning and establishment. The problem is just execution, in my view. I think even just on their social media pages, like there's no presence, but they're present. You know what I mean? The graphics are not aligned. There's just, it's just a lot of things. But I think
the graphics are not aligned.
The graphics are not aligned. Can you imagine going on Facebook and trying to just browse, and then you see an ad that is supposed to speak to something else, but it's speaking to the opposite, and there's no alignment there. And I think with a good PR strategy or a good PR plan, they can just turn things around and just get more clients.
Okay, internationally we hear of companies such as Saatchi and Saatchi, and I've always wondered whether they're into branding or they're into PR. And is there a difference? Can you do both?
You can do both. When I say the whole shebang, I meant the whole shebang. You can do branding, you can do marketing, you can do PR all in one house. I think companies like Hotwire does everything from A to Z, like in terms of PR, in terms of branding, in terms of reputation management, they do that. And companies like Saatchi and Saatchi, I mean, they do good work. They do great work, in fact. But I think what we do here is even greater. Like when I look at companies like Hotwire has a good business model, in my view. I think
you're a big admirer of them.
I am. Actually do work for Hotwire, and just that I do my thing on the side.
Yeah.
I'm a good admirer of them.
You mean they subcontract some work to you?
No, I work actively for Hotwire, but I do my thing on the side.
Oh, I see. Okay,
Yeah. So what Hotwire does is they have this PR space, and then they have the branding and the marketing and the thing on the side. But it's one company, but separated by like two sister companies. So that's a good model. For
a clueless guy like me, what would be the one side be in charge of and the other side be in charge of?
So one side, like the one that I'm in, Hotwire PRC, is in charge of the PR. It's like just
that's
PR.
What? Just sending newsletters. I mean, I want you to practicalize it.
So the side that I'm speaking to is PR. What we do is basically every communication that you see of the companies that we do PR for. So if you see anything on, I can't say companies, but we do the press releases, we do the speeches, we do the PR strategies, the marketing plans, the comms plans, just the whole PR thing. And then on the other side we have Wired. Wired does branding, they do the media placements, they do the advertising. So there are clients that we work together on, but we do the PR side and they do the other side of things.
And where are you comfortable the most? On the PR side?
Yes, I am PR for life. I think this is like my comfort and also my discomfort in a sense that it challenges me to keep doing other things, because there's a lot that you can do in PR. It's not just writing, it's not just speaking. Like, I'm not a public speaker myself, but there are people who do good public speaking, and if they speak, you're just like in awe.
You are wowed.
You're wowed, yeah. Okay,
what's the biggest misconception about PR in Botswana in particular?
That PR is marketing. That is a great misconception, and it's one that I'm hoping that with my contribution to the industry, I will be able to set things to light and just say this is what PR is and this is what marketing is. When you look at a lot of companies say they do PR, but essentially they do marketing. And it's different, because in marketing, you're trying to get sales, you're trying to promote your sales, you're trying to promote your services and products. But in PR, you're trying to build relationships. And building relationships, to me, is more valuable than trying to sell a product, because you're building relationships with people that should be buying your products. And if you communicate the value to them, if you show them the value, then buying your products is going to be a walk in the park.
Are you saying that marketing can be without value, without PR?
Not necessarily without value, because there's value in sales. Agreed, right? But value in a sense of people
limited value, perhaps.
Limited?
Limited value, or it limits. Without PR, marketing is doesn't go far enough, or is limited.
Let me give you an example.
I'm just exposing my ignorance.
Let me give you an example, right? There are people who shop at Woolworths. Even if a loaf of bread costs 200 pula, I don't know how much it costs, I don't shop there. But even if a loaf of bread costs 200 pula, someone will still go there, even if they don't have money. Why? Because they're loyal to that brand. Because when they think Woolworths, they think quality. They think fresh produce.
Think health, yeah.
They think health. They think everything good. And you compare these to other, local suppliers.
Brands, yeah.
It's not the same. So in PR, you create that. You get to create a brand perception that is commendable and sort of gets people to act the way that you want them to act. So it's very different from marketing. Marketing, you're just selling a product, but PR, you're creating a feeling about that product, such that when you go to a store and there's Coke and there's Pepsi, you can't pick a Pepsi over a Coke because you don't have a connection to Pepsi. You get what I mean? You have a connection to Coke. It makes you feel good. It's about enjoyment. It's about fun, because you have a story there. So that's the distinction between PR and marketing.
Okay. Locally, how successful are you at communicating with the market, and what systems are you using to communicate with the market to appreciate the value of PR?
The value of PR is essentially found in brand equity. If your brand, like I was just giving an example of Coke and Pepsi, if your brand has a story, and if a brand has sort of a people connection feeling to it, if I can connect with the brand, I think that's what I'm going for, as opposed to a brand that I can't connect with. And I think that's what PR has helped companies do, because people still go to companies that are considered bad or expensive, or because of that. But because of that connection that they have with a certain brand, with a certain company, they still go back. And that's what PR has done for companies. Yeah,
and then
it keeps people coming.
You mentioned LinkedIn. What's the importance of social media for PR, and how important is it to a successful PR strategy?
Even more than a successful PR strategy, I think even a successful brand, a successful company, you need to have a social media presence. I mean, if your company is one that sells products or services, because you need people, right, in your business. You need people to buy in. You need people to buy your products, to buy your services. So you need a social media. You need to know where your audience is. So for instance, if you have an audience on social media, they can't be in all social media platforms. So you need to know exactly where your audience is. You can't take, whatever company that does not have a social media presence on Facebook and take it to Facebook. You won't get any comments, you won't get engagement there. So you need to have a good social media strategy that will determine where your audience is and how to reach them, and what type of messaging do they appreciate, what type of tone do you use to speak to your audiences. And that's just the distinction between all the three social media platforms. I mean, LinkedIn, if you look at LinkedIn is very businessy, it's very formal, it's where it's like a personal CV type of thing. Right? And then you look at Facebook, Facebook is more...
Don't you have the same people?
No, they're not the same.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Maybe they're
actually
the same people, but when they're on
they're
social
in a different
media,
mindset.
Yes.
Yeah. You could be the same person, but you adopt a different posture.
Right, you got it. You can't be the same person you are on Facebook at LinkedIn. It's just people are going to like, who's this? You're going to be misplaced. And also one thing on that is you need to have a good messaging strategy. You can't write the same messages on LinkedIn, go Facebook, or go to Facebook, or go LinkedIn. It doesn't make any sense. You need to know what type of language to use, what type of tone to use. Every language and every message has its own personality. So you have to...
What's the tone for Facebook, and what's the tone for LinkedIn, and what's the tone for Instagram?
It depends who you are. It really depends on the type of brand or the type of
I'm talking
company.
businesses and entrepreneurs, yeah.
If you're a business and maybe you're into, finance, your language is going to be semi-professional on Facebook as much as it would be in LinkedIn. but the message is not going to be the same. Sorry, the message is going to be the same, but the tone is not. It's going to be very different. More LinkedIn, more Facebook, for instance, you can have instances where you put in your trending phrases here and there. You can't do that at LinkedIn. It's just going to be like, misplaced, weird and misplaced. So you need to be very strategic in terms of how you write and the tone you use and the approach that you use.
Okay. Now let's talk about the your career personally. Where do you think you've had the biggest challenge or setback in your PR career, and how did you deal with that setback?
Setbacks. I've had a setback, a major one in 2019. So the setback, I had just started this job, right? So me and the director were getting on really well. There were no issues there. And the only issue came when I wanted to implement some things that he felt were not aligned to the company and to what the company was trying to achieve. But when you look at it from my perspective, it was very much aligned, and it was something that was going to really just boost the business and, get people speaking and get people talking about that brand.
About the business.
Yeah, but unfortunately, he was not onto the idea, and I just had to let it go, because sometimes you just have to let things go, right?
Why do you see it as a setback?
It's a setback in terms of I was limited. I felt very, very limited. Like, you are allowed to soar and just fly, but you have to do it in a box or in a bottle. You can't really soar. And I felt, to me, I still get emotional about it even to this day, because
why couldn't you convince him?
It's difficult to convince someone who's made up their mind about something. Like, PR is something that is still new to a lot of people, I believe. People still can't quite really digest the idea of the point of having to do PR activities and PR strategies. So it was just that kind of thing. And that's what I was saying earlier, that I hope that with my contribution and with my research, that I'll be able to help people really understand the benefit and the influence that PR can have.
So how did you solve the problem? Did you resign, or what did you do?
No, it was the other way around, actually. So I ended up doing it anyway, but not at the time that I wanted to do it.
Explain.
So it was he was an expatriate, so he had to go back home, and I think a year later, a new person joined, so we were able to just implement the idea.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it worked out in the end.
It was a rebrand idea, if I should say.
So it did work out in the end.
It did work out, because I felt like the brand that they were using before was not really speaking to who they are, and it was not localized. It was a South African thing. So this one that we rebranded to was more local, and people could resonate and people could relate to.
But are you able to quantify the results in a case like that? Are you able to point to something tangible to say, as a result of this rebranding, these are the results?
Definitely. Let's look at, I don't know which example can I give, but if you have a good brand perception, let's say you've implemented your PR strategies, right, and then people start to look at your company differently and in a way that would make them to choose your product or to choose your service instead of choosing your competitor, right? And I think that's one thing that a PR strategy, a good one, can achieve for a company. What was the question, sorry?
The question was to say, how do you quantify results?
So you quantify results by looking at what were my metrics, my sales metrics before this idea came, and then what are my metrics now, having implemented this idea. And if you have implemented a good brand strategy and you now have a good brand perception, then you're going to get more sales, because people are going to go for this product instead of that one.
So it does translate to sales?
It does definitely translate to sales. It trickles down to sales, essentially.
You seem to me that you're really on top of your game, but here you are saying you want to do a master's. Why do you need a master's in media and communication?
I love books. I love school, and from here I'm doing my PhD. I think, to me, my master's is like, it's something that I've always wanted to do, and I look at it as a very huge and big achievement in my career. It's something that I've always wanted to do, and I feel like it's going to give me, what I'm learning actually is contributing to my work every day. I learn something new every day, and I feel like it's contributing to my work very enormously. And last semester, so I did this course. It's called public speaking.
Public speaking.
Yeah, I don't think before that course I could be able to stand here and look at you and just speak in front of a camera. I couldn't, but because of that course, it helped me to just get out of my shell. And
that's a course in public speaking. It's not a master's in media studies.
It's part of the program.
Is it part of the program?
It's part of the program.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you say to those entrepreneurs who give examples of people like Bill Gates, who never even got a first degree, and say you don't need all these degrees, and in fact it slows you down when you get too much academic education?
You don't need degrees. I agree. You don't need a degree, but you need knowledge. And for me, I think my knowledge is in formal education, in understanding the concepts for me to be able to implement them in my work. So you need to learn something. Even if it's not in school or from the books, you still need to learn something. And that's something, that idea or those concepts that you learn, you have to implement. So how are you going to implement before you learn? It's like chewing before you
does
bite.
having a master's or a PhD add to your credibility, or it's simply just a case of personal fulfillment?
It's personal fulfillment, but we should also look at our ecosystem here in Botswana. You're recognized for your formal education achievements. Essentially, that is what people look for when you're applying for a job or when you're applying for a tender. They want to see your CV. They want to know that you have a master's in this, a degree in this. But for me, it's just self-fulfillment. Yeah.
You say you want to really have a substantial impact in the PR area. How do you propose to do that? How do you propose specifically to have not just an impact, but a substantial impact?
I think I'm well on my way to that, if I say so myself. I mean, I've made impact in the industry. I mean, I'm in Prisa, and I'm a secretary in Prisa. I'm the youngest member in Prisa, Botswana. And the impact that I have there, I think to me, counts as substantial. And the education that I render to the public and to anyone who asks is substantial value back to the industry.
Okay. Can PR actually save a company from ruin to the point of making that company super successful and wealthy? And if the answer is yes, how?
Did you say wealthy? I think PR, in terms of crisis management, PR can definitely save a company. It just depends on how responsive you are to the crisis. If something happens here today, let's say a fire, God forbid though, let's say a fire happens now and the building is on fire, and you have to communicate to the public. How you're going to communicate will determine if you can salvage the company after the crisis has ended. So how you communicate really just depends on your communication plan. Do you communicate immediately? Do you wait for people to air their views first, for people to get the backlash from social media? What do you do? So that's where a crisis management plan comes in place. You need to have a very proactive crisis management plan, one that will prevent you from having those fires, one that you'll prepare well in hand before the fire comes. So it's about your crisis management strategy, to be honest.
So how do you then get that to be to the mullah, to get stacks, to get the nyoko? I guess I'm indirectly asking you if there's really money in PR, and how does it come from? Not only in terms of helping your clients, but yourselves as PR companies. Where is the cash?
When you look around Botswana right now, let's just say Gaborone, there are a lot of PR agencies, a lot of them. It shows that there's money in the industry, and people are cashing in on it. But how you make money out of PR is just offering a service. PR is more service offer, and then you get a payment. But if you're speaking to a crisis specifically, or a crisis having ensued, then you need to have a strict proactive plan in place. That's how you don't make money out of solving a crisis or responding well to a crisis, but you save your reputation, and your reputation is really, honestly, what keeps you in business. Your reputation.
It's much more important than brick and mortar.
Definitely. It helps you to get there, though. It does help you to get there. If you have a good reputation in the market and, people choose you over your competitors.
Now, there's normally a situation where a PR statement is issued. Does a PR person always have to issue that PR statement to the public, or anybody with communication skills can do it? What I want to know is that is there an extra special skill that is not available otherwise to companies?
I think writing is a skill, and storytelling is a skill. Storytelling, not your novel Once Upon a Time, no, but telling a story about something, that's a skill. And delivery is also a skill. You need to deliver. If you can write a good story, but just ruin it with a delivery. So you need to know how to write, how to craft your messaging, and how to deliver it, and where to deliver it, what medium to use, because that also counts. You can't just go and deliver a crisis communication on social media. You have to go to newspapers just to demonstrate the seriousness of it, right? So the delivery, the writing, and the crafting of the message, I think that's a skill.
Okay. I'm a bit, I don't like to say old school, but maybe middle school, where when somebody sends me an SMS and it's highly abbreviated, it sort of puts me off. But I noticed that this generation, everything's abbreviated. Messages, MSG, everything. What is your take on WhatsApp communication and messaging from a PR perspective? Is it important to be proper, or these abbreviations are okay? Or the way they do it, why the millennials do it? Are you happy with the way you guys do it?
I must be middle school because I don't like abbreviations either. Okay. I don't like abbreviations, but we need to appreciate the fact that our generation has passed. Yours has passed, mine has passed. It's the Gen Zs now, right? And they're going to do what they do, how they do it, when they do it. And I think it would be unfair and sort of redundant to try and change the way that they do things. But as from a PR's perspective, if you want to appeal to that generation, then you need to be like them. You need to bring yourself down to that level or up to that level, whichever level they're on, and just to be able for them to resonate with what you want to do or what you want to say to them.
But from a professional standpoint, if you want to communicate, because WhatsApp now is taking over from email, how are we going to do it? I mean, is there a guide? Is there a way? Is there an etiquette around it?
There's etiquette in email. There is email etiquette, and I'm sure there's WhatsApp etiquette as well. I mean, I used to work for a company where I communicated most of the time using WhatsApp because we were dealing with members.
Same for our company.
Yeah, and it was both in Setswana and in English. You still have to maintain that professionalism as you write and as you type. But the members, Bonnie, they're going to respond how they want to respond, and they're going to send you funny messages. But you need to stand your professional ground and just communicate professionally because you are representing an organization.
And how? Where is the etiquette? I mean, how is it? Where do we find the etiquette or guidelines for this etiquette, and how is it enforced?
There is no guideline. Unfortunately, I've never seen a guideline to say this is how you're supposed to communicate. But I mean, if you have been named or labeled as someone who will be communicating or as a mouthpiece for an organization, then you should know how to communicate in a way that does not, in a friendly way and in a professional way, but one that does not go out of line. You get what I mean? So there isn't a guideline to say communicate like this, but there is a guideline to say stay in your professional lane. Yeah.
What about our government and our politicians? Are they doing a good job in the PR space?
To be honest, I feel like if you're a prominent figure in government, political-wise, or an artist, whatever you are, you need to have, even if you do your own social media posting and the like, you still need to have a good strategy. You can't just post like I would post on my personal Facebook profile because you are representing people. You know, there is something more than, there's something bigger behind you. that you need to recognize, and that's a brand. If you're a political leader, you are a brand. You represent the color that you're standing in for. So there's a way that you should carry yourself on social media. Social media etiquette is very, very important, and I think a lot of people disregard it. People think, well, it's just social media, I don't need to be in any way, in anyhow. But there is a need for you to maintain professional social media etiquette.
Yeah, but how's the government doing? How's the government spokespeople, how are they doing? What's your assessment?
I've seen a few posts where I'm like, okay, who wrote this? But, I think government have, and I think this is one of the problems maybe that exist in terms of the practice of PR in Botswana, is the government doesn't really understand what PR is and what it aims to do. The literature that I read was that PR started in government, but the one that's about to do PR were your journalists. They don't have proper PR training to do the job, but they were just taken because they're media people, and they just thought, well, this person can do our writing, they can do our spokesperson thinging. But when you look at it, it really shows that there isn't training there. There isn't proper PR training to say this is how you need to conduct your messages, this is how you need to conduct yourself, how you need to write, how you need to speak.
I wonder what can be done about that, if anything.
The only thing that can be done is really just to change the narrative of PR, change the perception, change the way people think or what people think PR is, and just have a
The reason I'm asking you that is that, the president gave this great speech 2 years ago on mindset change, and actually used the word reset, and complained about bureaucracy being, somewhat sabotaging government programs and so on and so forth, and saying we needed to change. I'm just paraphrasing his speech. So I'm just wondering whether in the PR space there's also a need for a reset in that sense, and to what extent people like you can assist in that space.
There's definitely a need for a reset. We need to just, sit down and really ponder on PR and just understand, first of all, what does PR mean? What does it mean? And look at it from your organization's perspective, and also from the general perspective. What does it mean for you as an organization, and what does it mean professionally to practice PR? What is the practice of PR? What is the core role and practice of PR professionals? I think if we start there, then it'll be easy going forward, because then we'll be practicing it the right way.
Because just on this reset issue, I'm wondering whether the message is sufficiently communicated, whether there are enough professionals communicating the reset and the reset agenda, what it's about, to the public. Because the sense I get is that when I ask my guests and other people, is that it's muddled and it's not clear. So I just wonder whether people like you can bring some clarity, can really help communicate what we intend to do in terms of achieving this reset agenda.
I want to assume and believe that there's a PR behind those speeches that the president reads or that he posts. There should be someone in PR doing those things. And I think maybe the limitation that we have is even that person does not know what they're doing, I'm sorry to say, but they probably don't know what they're doing. They probably don't know, maybe they know what they want to do, but they don't go about it the right way. Even the reset phrase, what is reset? What are we resetting? Where were we? Where do we want to go? Because that was supposed to be clear and clearly illuminated.
The idea is we're corrupt, and we're getting corrupt, and the civil servants were not doing their work, and things were getting stuck, and there was a suggestion of sabotage due to a mindset which actually blocks government programs. And the president specifically said it's been like that for 30 years, or for a long time anyway, not say 30 years, for a long time. And he wanted us to change. And for me, I don't think enough communication is being done in terms of just a marketing strategy. There has to be a clear indication in terms of what you're telling me, where we are heading in terms of this reset. And I don't think we've done it. We've recognized the problem, but are we directing people to the solution sufficiently?
Yeah, very correct. And I mean, for something that seemed so serious that he was concerned about, like it was a concern of his, right? He was concerned that we need to change this. We are like this. We need to be like this. But it's just unfortunate that ever since that speech, nothing has happened on the ground.
Well, they started the Ministry of Entrepreneurship, which I thought was a big change, and there was a big cabinet reshuffle, and there was talk in Parliament of condensing the development plan to 2 years. I forgot what it's called. So there were some few noises, but I don't know whether the public has understood sufficiently what's happening. My sense is that it hasn't.
There was noise, right? Those things were established, but what was the impact? Because they were put in place for a purpose. What purpose do they serve, or do they serve? Who are they serving? And what's the progress sort of report? Like, where are we? I think that's what's lacking.
I think they should hire people like you to assist.
They should definitely hire people like
All right, now as we conclude, here's your chance to ask me a question. But before you do, I nearly forgot to ask you about your brand, how it looks in the future in terms of your future projection. If you look at that crystal ball, 10, 20 years down the line, what can we expect from the company?
Brandbuzz. Brandbuzz is definitely going places. I mean, I'm employed right now, but I consider myself as an entrepreneur employee. You know, I'm not just employed for the long run.
Entrepreneur is a word for you. But you also have your side gig.
Yes.
So, yeah, you're an entrepreneur. You're right.
Yeah, an entrepreneur employee. And 5 to 10 years down the line, I should have my PR consulting firm. And that's something that I've put down as a wish since I started PR. And I'm going to get it. Just you watch the space.
And it's going to be based where, and it's going to be doing what?
It's going to be based here. I'm a local fanatic, so it's going to be based in Botswana, helping Botswana businesses grow, helping entrepreneurs, helping brands. And I'm really passionate about just changing the narrative of PR in Botswana and helping people to appreciate what it really is and what it stands for. So it's going to be based locally.
Okay, we'll be watching this space. Okay, do you have a question for me?
Yes. When I started, I asked, do you have a PR person behind the Mogobe brand?
That's a question you have. Well, the closest to a PR person is myself, but I do have somebody in marketing. We have a gentleman called Leo Tomelang, and he assists there and there. But for the most part, in terms of what goes out there, you're looking at the PR officer for the company. But I do get help. For instance, if I have specific things that I want to do, I would ask the team here. We have the Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom team, and then we also have my PA, who is also very, you know him, Andile, who's also really clued on. So he would initiate some of the things we want to communicate to the public. So that's as good as it gets.
But maybe you should explore PR. I mean, it's impressive that you don't really have a trained PR professional here, but your PR is good. I mean, we see you, we recognize you, there's a lot that you're doing, you're making an impact, and I think that's something that you should commend yourself on.
Thank you. Thank you. You're very kind.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. All right, as we conclude our conversation, look at the camera over there and kindly just leave them with a message of inspiration. Share that something final with them.
If you're a small business, a big business, a small brand, a big brand, you need to invest in your PR strategy. You need to have a good PR strategy because you need people to look at you and have an emotional connection to your brand or to your organization. So you really need to invest in a good PR strategy for your brand. Thank you.
Okay, all right. How do they reach you? Can you share all your contact details?
It's Lulu Bontle Daniel on Facebook, Lulu Bontle Daniel on LinkedIn. My contact details are 76788-477. I advise on PR for small businesses, so you can reach me there, 76788-477.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. You did a great job.
Thank you. Thanks.